With that, I am now going to introduce an undergraduate student, Aviana Smith. Aviana, can you just wave your hand so everybody knows where you are? Aviana is a senior here at Boise State, and she's going to graduate in fall 2024. And the interesting thing about Aviana's research is Aviana is a double major in music and physics, and her research brings together both these majors, which is a humanities and a STEM major. And with that introduction, I'm going to hand it over to Aviana and let her talk about her research. We'll have time for questions. So if you have any questions for Aviana, hold on to that and we'll have about 5 minutes after her presentation for questions. Aviana, it's over to you.
All right, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, Lavanya. I really appreciate it, and it's really a pleasure to be speaking with you guys today. Today, I'm going to be talking a bit about my research as a biophysicist with Dr. Daniel Filoja. Let me see if I can get a better view of the screen. There we go. Thank you. So I have a bit of a rundown here, talking a bit about the context. Usually when we talk about, especially kind of micro experiments, people can lose the context for why we're doing this. As a biophysicist, I have a very interesting role in that I am allowed to research these very important biological systems and understand how they are supposed to function in order to better diagnose and treat different health issues. But I'm using this through the lens of a physicist. So I'm using concepts that are from a little bit of a different discipline here. So today my research is going to be about electric double layers and the biological surfaces. So layering organic and non-organic layers and then seeing how the electrical charges are changing along with them. So in biology, the way that membranes are able to function and that all different cells are able to communicate is through these electrochemical gradients and the movement of ions to allow for proteins to connect, axons to fire, and pretty much every other cell to really function. And so my research really takes a look at how these electrical signals are changing within an organic system in order to mathematically characterize what's really going on. So we have a good reference point for when things go bad. And that can lead to different diseases that are commonly seen. So the way that this experiment worked is I took a crystal and I put it in a solution of ions just to see how they moved. So these different capacitances were able to, let me back up just a little bit, sorry. So the crystal itself had a different charge, and that will lead to a non-homogeneous distribution of charges within the surface. As you can see from my first figure, I have the silicon oxide layer on the very outside of the crystal, and that was slightly negative, which drew the positive charges in the system. Now in physics, this has a very interesting specific name for it, and this is called the Debye screening effect. And this can effectively allow us to model the system as a capacitor, as a capacitor is a wall of one type of charge and a wall of another charges. So in my figure 2, I've mapped out the Debye layer and how we can see capacitance decrease over the distance. So this was really what we were measuring for this experiment. Moving to figure 3, this is the same sort of layout as figure 1, but this is the electrical setup. So it's the exact same thing, but looking at it through the eyes of electricity. And the reason that this is an important step for us to be able to take is that it really connects the two, and it allows us to model this organic system as something electrical. And as a physicist, this means we're now able to use our wonderful, wonderful formulas. And we're able to map this as a resistance capacitance circuit. And so we're able to use different equations that we have for mapping current and charge over time. And this is able to teach us how the system is supposed to charge up and how it's supposed to discharge. And this can be changed if there is some issue in the different charges in the system, which would result in the diseases, which we were talking about earlier. And so figure 4 is really just showing the different ways that or the different results that we got for this system. And so for this system, we were able to see that the higher the resistance, the more time it would take to discharge the system. And this really just allows us to see that this sort of setup will work for future experiments. And so as we are taking a look at really modeling these systems closer to a chosen biological organism. So if we were taking a look at axons, we could replace the silicon oxide with the element which it is associated with. That this will be able to serve us in the future by being able to map the time constant and observe how those axons are supposed to be functioning within the body. May I please have the next slide? All right, thank you very much. There were a lot of things that led me to research. As Lavanya mentioned, I am a double major in music and physics. Physics was a minor for me at the time, and my actual major was vocal performance. And I loved it, and I couldn't imagine myself as anything but a singer. But I took physics because I loved it and because I was curious. And after my first semester of physics classes, I decided I loved it enough that I wanted to declare it as a second major. And so I had the flexibility to really work with that in my schedule and say, you know, this is something important to me and something that I really love. And I reached out to Dr. Daniel Faloja, who very graciously accepted me into his lab and took me under his wing. And my life has not been the same since. I remember the first lecture I really remember really enjoying in physics was talking about constructive and destructive interference and how it allowed us to see different colors. And I remember being very, very happy during that lecture because, you know, my teacher had explained to me why we're able to see colors in bubbles. And that's kind of what it took to get me hooked. But research has been very important to me, and it's really emphasized certain skills. The one crossover that I would really push for everyone to keep in mind this summer is yes and, a very famous improvisational tool that we use. And just saying yes to the opportunities and the challenges that come your way and taking them on as they come. Knowing your habits and knowing how you study best, what sort of pitfalls you may fall into, whether it's procrastination or stress or responding to emails occasionally in my case. Perseverance to keep going when you have to redo an experiment again and again for the first time, and just trying something new. And again, I would like to reiterate chasing opportunities and making sure that you are reaching out to people who you've never spoken to before and talking to a professor who may be very, very impressive and a little bit intimidating. And just really making the most of this opportunity that we've been given. For me, I leave tomorrow for Utah for a summer internship in underwater acoustics, which will be very, very fun. And I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. This fall, I will be applying to graduate schools. I'm hoping to pursue a PhD in biophysics. As for where, I'm still taking a look at that, but I'm very excited. And I'm very excited for what the future may hold. And I'm very thankful that I have had physics with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aviana. That was wonderful. And I love how you say, remember to say yes to opportunities. Questions for Aviana. Feel free to unmute yourself or put a question in chat.
I have a question for you, Aviana. Do you remember which was the first scholarship you received and made possible the research for the Debye layer, what you presented?
The Debye layer screening?
Yes.
That was a very generous contribution from the Higher Education for Research Council. And that research was done over last fall. And I was very grateful to have the opportunity to take on my very first project all by myself, doing the research and the planning.
So it is a her scholarship from Boise State University. Thank you again, Lavania.
Aviana, you have a question from Mihal in chat. What's your favorite thing about being a part of a research team?
Being a part of a research team really allows me to challenge different aspects. One of the things I've really pushed on, given my very unique set of skills, is my ability to go out and talk to people and be able to kind of talk to them in a way that they may not hear very often in research. And being a part of a research team has really allowed me to kind of, talk to my colleagues about the research and try to figure out what is the best way to explain something to a group of people when they're just walking in, and they may have different backgrounds and different skill sets, and they come from different disciplines. And it's just really special to be able to talk with someone else and see, where they're coming from and how they're really taking the information in.
Thank you. Loretta has a question. What was the hardest part of being a part of a research team?
Oh, thank you. I think the hardest part for me, especially because I was coming from music, was that I always felt a little bit like maybe I didn't know enough to be there. And I always felt like I needed to prove myself. And that it's exhausting for everyone involved. It's exhausting for you to continuously be thinking that. And it's exhausting for the people around you because they know what you're saying and they trust you. And no one is questioning why you're here because you're here for a reason and you are allowed to choose you without any other explanation. And so the hardest thing for me was learning how to communicate in a way that was more open and honest with people and being able to, be honest when, maybe I didn't do the concentration math correctly, or maybe we have to review some of the results because I'm not confident in how they were done, or I have questions on things that I know we've talked about before, but I still don't quite understand. And just being able to trust in the people around me and know that they know I'm here for a reason and I deserve to be here just as much as anyone else.
It's a great question and a great answer. Donna has a question for you. Has your understanding of physics influenced your singing and vice versa?
Yes, yes. I know it's a bit different coming in from music to physics because I have different communication levels and skills and quirks. But coming from physics into music means that I have a different level of understanding. And I still have that curiosity that brought me to physics in the first place. And so when I'm in my music courses, I want to hear, how does the voice use the Bernoulli effect in order to function? How is the anatomy working together? And it's a different way to use your brain even if you're working in a different discipline and a different skill, those critical thinking skills really play a part and they can allow you to succeed in other areas as well as research.
Other questions for Aviana, we do have time. And Michal, yes, imposter phenomena is real. I feel it all the time. On the slide, Aviana's put her email. So I'm assuming it's okay for people to reach out to her.
Absolutely, yes. I'd love to hear from anyone if you have any questions or you just want to reach out to ask advice or for any reason, really.
Okay, thank you, Aviana. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And we felt like it was important for our researchers who this might be your first time doing research, to hear from someone who was in your shoes not that long ago and is still learning alongside. I love the interdisciplinarity. I love that Daniel is here to support you as a mentor. And around the imposter phenomenon, I really appreciate your comment how not only is it exhausting for you, but it's exhausting for everybody else who wants to say, stop worrying about it. We believe in you, believe in yourself. And I think that's just a wonderful message. So thank you so much.